Boom. We're alive.
Nice.
Here.
It's great to be live.
It is. It is great to be live. The seasons are changing. We were talking about this a couple weeks ago. It always catches you off guard how it like starts getting dark quick
really
out of
does.
nowhere. And like we used to do these streams over the summer and it'd be, bright and sunny until, 9:00 my time. And now it's like already dark and we're just getting started. It's wild. It is so wild. Well, as we're letting folks come in, hey, Sean, I had to ask you a couple things. I saved talking about these beforehand because I wanted to get your thought. There are some big non-Star Wars things coming up in the next couple weeks. So next weekend is Dune, which I think you're pretty excited about. I think you're caught up on the book now. You're ready to go. So that's really exciting. But Saturday. Today's Thursday. Saturday, I am very excited because we have DC Fandom. Do you know what that is? Do you have any idea what that is?
Is it kind of like a virtual sort of con where they make a whole bunch of announcements?
That's right.
And I think the Batman trailer is supposed to show, right?
You're exactly right. And I watched it last year, and I'm extremely excited to watch it this year. DC properties specifically are like top of my list. So I am so excited for that Batman trailer and everything else. I think it's a really good idea. I think every studio should do that. Like, give your fans a couple hours of just movie and comic announcements. I think it's a really good idea. It's just free promotion.
It's something that happens sort of with video games, and once EA started doing their own announcement, that's where people actually go and try to see if there's going to be the next big Star Wars game announcement. Like, hey, are you waiting on EA? People are not even queuing up these gaming awards or whatever shows. It's the EA stuff people want.
It is. I'm a sucker for a good trailer. I'll tell you this. I can think of trailers that I literally liked better than the final movies. Like, the experience is better. It reminds me of, I actually thought the Last Jedi had really successful trailers.
Spectacular. Yeah. I would say it's by far one of the best trailers I've ever seen for like a blockbuster movie.
I think it was a great trailer.
The music was such a huge part of it.
It's amazing how in movies, more than almost anything else, you can simply put, a promotional material out there, like a trailer, 2 minutes, cut, and it can just generate such hype or it's just incredible. So I will attend. So for the comic book fans out there, if you guys are strolling in here, DC Fandom, it starts at like 1 Eastern, I believe, on Saturday. It'll probably last a couple hours. You'll see all the trailers online after, so you don't have to watch the whole thing, but just be ready. That'll be a lot of fun, I think. And Dune. We're both excited about Dune. You've read the book. I have not. So I'll be curious to hear your reaction in the coming days. Now, let's go ahead and talk some Star Wars stuff.
Let's do it.
Let me get the screen share going here. And we are going to pop on over because there's actually quite a bit of Star Wars things I want to talk about. Smaller stories, but I think ones we can go in. So my question to you, do you want to start on Visions or do you want to start on new book announcements? I'll let you kind of drive.
Let's go with the new books because I'm kind of anxious to get that out of the way, to be honest with you.
Well, so this is something that I thought would be kind of fun to talk about because I saw a little bit of your reaction on Twitter. Right. So if you guys don't know, last week, I believe exactly a week ago, October 7th, they announced a number of new Star Wars books. And I think initial reactions were mixed. I actually thought some of these sound really enjoyable, and even I think one that you and I are mainly going to disagree on. I'm even kind of excited to dive in. So let's take a look at these. If you guys aren't familiar, this is on Star Wars official website, obviously. It says, and the way they promoted it, it says new books starring Luke and Lando, Obi-Wan and Anakin, and more revealed. Well, those are some great names. We're excited just hearing those names. Those are fan favorites.
Name drops.
Let's come back to Shadow of the Sith. I think you and I are going to have the most conversation here. Let's just quickly cover the other ones here. So we have Brotherhood. So Brotherhood is Obi-Wan and Anakin, and it's a story about them during the Clone Wars. Now, this is the one I'm least excited about, and I'll tell you why. Because we've seen the most of this. In the Clone Wars show, I've already experienced this the most. You know what I mean? This is the least fresh idea. Doesn't mean I'm not excited. It's just of the announcements, I found myself like, okay, I've already kind of experienced this relationship. I've experienced this brotherhood. So I'm excited to see it. But these two other ones sound a little more new to me. Do you know what I mean? Let me read the premise real quick. Oh, it sounds like you're disagreeing with me.
I'm canceling you, okay? I don't want to come on the show anymore. You proclaim yourself, sir, to be a prequels fan.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, you are correct.
Okay.
What I like, well, let's get into it. Let's read this and then we'll talk about it.
Yeah,
So it says Obi-Wan Kenobi and Anakin Skywalker must stem the tide of the raging Clone Wars and forge a new bond as Jedi Knights. Okay, I'm hyped. You know, I love that. The Clone Wars have begun. Battle lines are being drawn between the galaxy. With every world that joins the Separatists, the peace guarded by the Jedi Order is slipping through their fingers. After an explosion devastates Cato Nemoidia, the jewel of the Trade Federation, the Republic is blamed, and the neutrality of the planet is threatened. The Jedi dispatch Obi-Wan Kenobi, one of the Order's most gifted diplomatic minds, that's the truth, to investigate the crime and maintain the balance that has begun to dangerously shift. Okay, so I like the premise. It sounds fun. It's something that fits the character, fits the time, doesn't feel like wonky, like, what is this story, you know? Sometimes you can get weird, so I'm in so far. As Obi-Wan investigates with the help of heroic Nemoidian Guard, he finds himself working against the Separatists who hope to draw the planet into the conspiracy, and senses a sinister hand of a Saj Ventress in the mist that cloak the planet. It's very cool. I mean, I'm all about this. You know I am. I love the Clone Wars show.
Right.
This sounds like a story that could fit right in there. I'm not familiar with Mike Chen's work. Maybe you are. But to me, this is the most what I'll call vanilla of the books. This is like a standard, solid Star Wars story, but I feel like I've seen it before. But we'll see. So it's lower on my list. But you seem to be really hyped about this one. Tell me why.
You know, I want to admonish you here. Well, not really admonish, but I just want to point something out. It's for having the expanded universe being my guiding light, you know, during the prequel era. You know, it's no secret that I didn't fully enjoy the prequels. There was things even about the movies that I did like, even at the time they were coming out, but I was like generally kind of underwhelmed. And I said, well, okay, so what's next for me? What's next in the Star Wars stuff? And they said, well, now you're going to get more books on this content. And you know what? Even back then, I kept an open mind. And even during the Legends period, when they started dropping these books, I understand your hesitation perfectly, because it feels like this story is too close to the movies, timeline-wise. You know, it's like, hey, like, are they squeezing more? How much more juice can I get out of those familiar characters? You know what? It's surprising, because in 2005, right? I pulled it up on my screen. If you want, you could do it on yours. Type Labyrinth of Evil Star Wars by James Luceno. For those of you guys who are familiar with the Star Wars Legends, in my humble opinion, James Luceno is one of the best authors in Star Wars. And he wrote this book, Labyrinth of Evil, which also deals with Anakin, with Kenobi, with Clone Period. So it's, in a sense, basically a counterpart to what synopsis of what you just read in terms of time frame. And, you know, my question was like, hey, it's a bit too close. Where do we go from here? Like, are you going to really hit me with something refreshing or like will make me like raise my eyebrows? Josh, I can tell you this. And again, it's an opinion of one person, but the deeper you dive into these books, the more intricately they're able to weave that narrative. And like, oh man, give me more. Even when The Master and Apprentice was first announced, I'll be honest with you, what hooked me the most was just the cover of it. I'm like, okay, that one looks nice, but you know, where's it gonna go? I'm still hesitant, even today. And you read the book, I'm like, man, did they deliver? It's honestly, with each new outing, with each new book, it's give or take. It's always a question mark. Even if the best author is attached, you never know if it's going to succeed or not.
Right.
So I'm keeping it with, you know, with a grain of salt, but I'm optimistic about it.
Well, you're absolutely correct. I mean, you know, we can read these synopsis, we can look at the covers that aren't even revealed, we can look at the author, and we could say, oh, this is going to be the best, or this is going to be, we don't know until they come out. So we can only go off what we hear. Now, to your point, I think there's been a lot of strong Clone Wars era books or prequel era books. You just called out two, but there's also like Dooku, Jedi Lost. A lot of people really enjoy, which helps flesh out that era more. So
I'm loving that stuff, man. Even the new canon, whatever they hit, those right keynotes, it's fun.
Totally agree. This, I think, as most people are like, yeah, we'll see. That sounds fun.
Yeah.
This is called Stories of Jedi and Sith. I believe it's kind of just an anthology kind of. So, you know, the brave Jedi, the devious Sith, the iconic heroes and villains that embody the struggle between light and dark. And I think it just covers it's an anthology. So it's 10 authors coming in and telling us new tales. It has characters.
Any time frame? Are they talking the period?
Well, they literally say tales from the saga's most popular characters. So it's Luke to Darth Vader, Obi-Wan to Asajj, and beyond. So it's probably going to just be all the
Ventress, Maul.
Yeah. I don't know what they're going to focus on.
Yeah,
it's funny to me they didn't say Kenobi and Maul. I guess it's because we've really explored that. Maybe we haven't explored Asajj as much. So there's that. All right. Hello, chat. Sorry, I got focused reading. It's good to see everyone tonight. We are just talking about the new books and we're giving our thoughts. We're going to go to Shadow of the Sith here shortly because I think we're probably going to have the hottest takes here. Now, Padawan. Okay, so again in the prequel era. So we are 2 for prequel so far. One that's going to be anthology and one that's going to be old. So Obi-Wan Kenobi struggles with his place in the Force as a young Padawan in this coming-of-age adventure. I think that'll be an interesting story. We don't have a ton. I mean, we have a little bit of young Obi-Wan. And so the more we see of that, I think is going to be, always exciting. It is interesting because we're getting the Kenobi show next year. So I wonder if it's going to tie in anywhere. They're going to reference some of this material. I don't know, but they're both coming out in 2022. So it is a little interesting. So Obi-Wan Kenobi really wants to be a good Padawan. I don't know if this is going to be the age of this as well. Let me just clarify that. I don't know if this is going to be a kid's book, because some of these might be young adult books or children's books, and, some might be adult, just like they do with the High Republic. So it sounds like we're going to hear a little bit about one of his first missions with Qui-Gon Jinn. And
it seems like it's a continuation from The Master and Apprentice.
It very well might be. Let's see.
Or before that, actually.
Yeah, I think it might be before that.
Mm-hmm.
When Obi-Wan finally convinces Qui-Gon Jinn to take him on a mission to a remote planet once explored by ancient Jedi, his master doesn't show up in the morning. They are to leave. So Obi-Wan impulsively takes off by himself. So it's probably one of his first, stories with Qui-Gon. And that could be interesting because, Qui-Gon's a big fan favorite. I think kind of a model of what people think a Jedi should be. Mm-hmm. When we think of in the movies, I think Qui-Gon is like that standard. And, we...
I'm interested. I've always been fascinated with the younger Kenobi for some reason, because I never questioned what's his background is when you look at him in the originals. He's kind of, that's what he is, right? He's like this elder sage, but it's like, you never ask yourself a question, what is he like as a kid? And once again, I'm coming back to Legends because we obviously have more material in there. That's what I personally covered more of. But when you see the young Kenobi, and even when you see him in episode 1, it's a curious version of him. He's like, hey, he's like kind of shaking on his legs, right? He's still learning about the Force. There's a lot of stuff they could do with the character in there.
They can. And I saw, so Sean just said something about Bane, and I actually had this queued up. So there was a new, in the new Secrets of the Sith book, they gave us more official artwork of Darth Bane, which looks like he did in Clone Wars.
Exactly, yeah.
The lightsaber, though, is pretty gnarly. That's a pretty cool looking blade.
Yeah.
I mean, that is pretty unique. So some official artwork here of Bane. A really cool character design. It's a really cool character design. You can't deny it. I mean, I'd love to see more about the character in canon. It's cool that he is in canon. I like that. That's cool because, some of the fan favorite, badass Sith characters are never really canon or, so it's kind of cool that we actually saw him in the Clone Wars. So, yeah. Anyway, sorry, I saw that in chat and I just happened to have this pulled up because I knew it might come up. I'm loving
it. Actually, it's something fresh on my eyes. I haven't seen it yet, but it's like the moment you said it looks like from Clone Wars, I immediately remembered that episode that Lucas decided to canonize him.
Yeah, and it's cool because this is a canon look at him. We got it in Clone Wars, and this lines up right with that. The blade, I don't know, what that design would look like in movement, but it's a really cool art design. It looks like a cool picture. So anyway, so the final story, this is the one that I think has got the most kind of mixed reaction. It's called Shadow of the Sith. Okay, so we had two prequels books. Mm-hmm. We had one kind of anthology. And this is one that's following. This is between the original trilogy and the sequel trilogy. Now, let's lay the groundwork down here before we get into this. I think both of us aren't what I'd call big sequels fans. I think there are pieces we probably are mixed on. Like, I know, for example, you like The Last Jedi more than me. Yeah. But I might like, for example, Rise of Skywalker or The Force Awakens more than you. So we kind of go back and forth. I'm planning, and, feel free to weigh in. I'm really thinking about doing a rewatch on the channel and just going through them again and kind of breaking down what worked, what didn't work for me with kind of fresh eyes. Now that I've spent a year, reading High Republic, reading other Star Wars books, watching, just really deep in the universe. Let me take a step back and look at the sequels again and see what I get out of it. See what kind of thoughts I have. So Shadow of the Sith is a story with Luke and Lando. So right off the bat, these are big shoes. These are iconic characters, fan favorites. So here's the premise. Let's read it. The Empire is dead. Nearly 2 decades after the Battle of Endor, the tattered remnants of Palpatine's forces have fled to the farthest reaches of the galaxy. Okay. But for the heroes of the New Republic, danger and loss are ever-present companions, even in the newly forged era of peace. Okay. It's after Return of the Jedi. It says Palpatine's forces are on the retreat. So this is gonna... we can already tell just on this, we're gonna get into, I'm sure, what happened to Palpatine after Return of the Jedi in this a little bit. We've seen it in the comics a little bit. I think this is going to be in here. Jedi Master Luke Skywalker is haunted by visions of the dark side, foretelling an ominous secret growing somewhere in the depths of space on a dead world called Exegol. All right. Some people might already be triggered. The disturbance in the Force is undeniable, and Luke's worst fears are confirmed when his old friend Lando Calrissian comes to him with reports of a new Sith menace. Huh. Is that Snoke? I mean, is that what we're seeing there? Is this our first glimpse of Snoke?
I don't know. But
Anyway, okay, yeah. So after his daughter was stolen from his arms, so we're kind of tying into something we heard in The Rise of Skywalker. After his daughter was stolen from his arms, Lando searched the stars for any trace of his lost child, but every new rumor only led to dead ends and fading hopes until he crossed paths with Ochi of Bestoon, a Sith assassin tasked with kidnapping a young girl. Now, Ochi, if you guys don't know, is in the Vader comics right now. So if you're not caught up or anyone, he is a character that was introduced in the Vader comics, basically used by Palpatine to, from my limited understanding, he goes after Vader. He kind of like pushes Vader. It's, in the comics, from what I've read, very little. There's definitely full breakdowns out there. Palpatine kind of treats Vader like dog crap, which makes sense because that's kind of the whole dark side thing. So he frequently puts him in situations where he might die, might get killed. And if he survives, great. He's more powerful. If not, whatever, right? Because that's just how Palpatine is. And I think that makes sense. I mean, it does feel very Sithy, right? Always treating their Padawans like crap.
Yeah.
Ochi's true motives remain shrouded to Luke and Lando. On a junkyard moon, a mysterious envoy of the Sith Eternal have bequeathed a sacred blade to the assassin, promising that will give him answers to the questions that have haunted him since the Empire fell. In exchange, he must complete a final mission, return to Exegol with the key to the Sith's glorious rebirth, the granddaughter of Darth City himself, Rey. So this is tied right in. So as Ochi hunts Rey and her parents to the edge of the galaxy, Luke and Lando race into the mystery of the Sith, lingering shadow, and aid a young family running for their lives. Okay, so this book, I'll kind of say my thought, and then I think you're going to have an opinion on this. Over the last couple years, in comics, in this book, and others, Star Wars has attempted to bridge the gap, to fill in the questions a lot of folks had when they watched Rise of Skywalker and the whole new sequel trilogy. Wait, what the heck is Exegol? Where was that? Okay, well, here's what it is. Where did all these Star Destroyers come from? Okay, here's where it is. So in the Vader comics, you might have seen, as Ochi is going after Vader, they do uncover Palpatine's plans to build these Star Destroyers in the future, right? Okay, that's how it happens, right? And there's a bunch of that, right? Okay, right. We see a lot of cloning being brought into the Bad Batch is having cloning stuff going on, obviously. We've seen it in The Mandalorian. There's a bunch of cloning stuff going on. We've seen that. So they are heavy clone influence. And then stories like this are trying to fill in those cracks. And a while ago, when the first kind of hints of this came out in the Vader comics, I said my general opinion was a lot of the Palpatine coming back stuff did not work for me. They're trying to fix it, and I'm willing to give them a shot because I don't think they're going to make it worse for me personally. Like, it didn't work for me. Nothing they're going to say is going to be like, oh, now it works for me even less. Well, it's already kind of dead. Okay, maybe there's a small chance they'll kind of, oh, that's a little bit, oh, I get it a little bit more. Oh, okay, well, that's an interesting idea. I don't really like it. So I'm okay with this, even though I recognize it has a very tall task to try to turn my opinion. Now, that's my piece. Let's turn it over to you. I had to read all of that, so I will shut up. Tell me, what's your first reaction?
For the danger of sounding jaded, let me just say this. Look, it's no matter how much diplomacy you try to put into your language, it's kind of hard to dance around the fact that the rise of the Skywalker, again, all opinion, right? It's all just me. I feel it's not only the weakest out of the three films, and I had fun with it. And the second time around that I saw it, it actually was better. Why was it better? Because I can easily plug off, my critic hat and just watch the film and enjoy it for what it is. On the premise of what it is, The Rise of the Skywalker, it's fun. It's a fun blockbuster movie. Now, when you look at it as, did it conclude a trilogy that had so much potential to rise to the occasion and catch that special Star Wars magic? It doesn't. And no matter what they do with the books to try to retcon it, because that's the way I personally view it, it's the problematic part of it is the film itself, and you can't erase it. It has no foundation. For me, the problem with returning Palpatine, and especially particularly Exegol, when you go to his planet, and not only there's the fleet, there's a whole bunch of the Sith and all this stuff happening there. A 30-year span is not nearly enough to build the grounds for that kind of sweeping storyline. You follow me? And no matter how much tweaking or adding to that story is, when you have a building and you have the blueprint and the framework sucks, eventually it's gonna collapse. To be my own critic and to play the devil's advocate, let's look at it from a different perspective. I am the person who didn't like all of the prequels. I did not feel that they represent Star Wars to me, right?
Right.
But the one thing with the prequels that I will always give them, they're one solid vision. It didn't cater to me. It's not what I see in Star Wars, but it's solid. It has a beginning and has a clear end. It's not trying to go pulled 10 different ways, right? And the way that George accumulates and the build-up and the crescendo and the way that the story ends, concludes a very tragic ending, it makes sense throughout. So even if you didn't like that, the way that I saw the novels coming into it, the prequel novels during the Legends era, they weren't really trying as much as plug the hole or patch it. They were trying to expand and celebrate what was already there. And what's funny, when you check out some of those stories, some of James Luceno, some of the Matthew Stover, and so on and so forth, Catherine Travis, when you read those stories, when the author is kicking ass, and they're not being apologetic for the original content, but all they're trying to do is amplify it, it won me over. I'm like, man, I can't front. These stories just work. They're great, right? In this instance, again, being a Star Wars fan is, I'm not going to openly embrace my arms and say, yes, give me. I'm positive. I'm going to like it. No, I'm like, oh, man, I'm sort of rolling my eyes. But at the same time, I'm like, okay, feed me. Let me see where it goes. Let me see what they do with it. But at this point, before the book's release, there's nothing in my mind that can repair a lazy writing of bringing Palpatine back and seeing this epic sweeping scene. That throne room looked beautiful visually. And when you see all those Sith popping out, I'm like, this is very uncanny valley. Like, what are you doing here? Why are you barraging me? Like, one of the professional critics on Rotten Tomatoes, the way that he was critiquing Rise of the Skywalker was very interesting. He said, it's not that the movie is good or bad. There's clearly some epic stuff happening in there. But he felt like he was watching a trilogy squeezed into one film with all the story elements cut out, and we're only giving like abbreviated greatest hits version of that trilogy. You know what I mean?
I think we tend to be really hyperbolic about movies, especially, and I'm guilty of this too, where you see a movie and you're like, that movie is garbage.
Right.
When the reality is, it's like, okay, there were oftentimes really subtle, really quick changes that could have been made that might sway your whole opinion. And The Rise of Skywalker, I think there's a couple things. I think you're right. I think one of the things we can all agree on, even big fans of the sequel would probably argue, I wish it had more time to breathe. The whole sequel trilogy felt
the 4 hour, the Snyder Cut.
Right. It felt, it felt very, like you said, it did feel rushed. I think that's very fair, because it did feel like they went in and said, we're going to give 3 directors their own vision. And we've all seen the concept art that originally was supposed to be the last movie of the saga, where we had the Weebish Bog with the Eye meeting Kylo, and there was all sorts of wild stuff going on in the vision of, is it Colin? I'm totally blanking on the director's name. Regardless, thank you. That's it. Regardless, they went in, I think, with the bold vision of, hey, and then they kind of backed out of it. And you feel that in the movies, because it's like the first movie is distinctly nostalgic and fun, and to me, and it reminds me of Star Wars. It reminds me of just going to theater and having a good time, being excited about a movie. I mean, I was excited in that movie. I was excited leaving the theater.
We're talking Rise?
Yeah. Oh, no. Force Awakens.
Force Awakens.
I was excited in that movie. A lot of people think it's pretty meh, but you can't deny that the setup was there, to me at least. The setup was there to really tell a great story. Last Jedi, whole other topic for a whole other time with what it meant. And then the, Rise of Skywalker seemed to just kind of try to rush to put a bow on it. At the end of the day, with novels like this, it is what it is. If it's great, then that's awesome. It's good for me because there might be a story I love that is in a whole new era that and I just saw someone in chat talk about Trail of Shadows from the High Republic. Trail of Shadows. I keep doing that. I did it in my video last night. Yes, we will talk about that here shortly as well. But, with a book like this, to me, I'm going to give it a shot. I hope it's fantastic. I hope it's one of my favorite Star Wars books ever. And then maybe it makes me start loving an era and time of Star Wars that I don't currently, crave. Look, you and I've talked about it, and we're going to talk about something a little bit later with Star Wars and its future. I'm okay with continuing to get Star Wars in the Skywalker era, but I'm cool with us going a lot of other places too. I think that's, especially the books, like the High Republic, etc. I think that to me is more exciting. But if this, tells an awesome story with characters I like, then hey, good for me. My general point is like, it's not like it's offensive to me. You know what I mean? Like, they're gonna go for it. Yeah, exactly.
And let other people enjoy it.
Right. They're going to go for it. If it's great, well, that's good for me because they're going to answer some questions, for the sequel trilogy that I had. Maybe it's just amazingly fun. And in the end, I'm like, you know what? It was a great book. If it's terrible, if it's one of my least favorite books, okay, whatever. I didn't really love the sequel trilogy anyway. So it was just something else that I don't have to enjoy. I mean, it's that simple to me, but it is exciting to me nonetheless that we keep getting Star Wars books. I know that sounds silly, but books aren't that popular today as they were, in the past for giant genres. I mean, it's crazy that a company like Lucasfilm, like Disney, who makes billions, still puts time into authors and writing, when they could easily just do TV shows, toys, and everything, and just not pay any attention to the medium. So I'm at least
Star Wars always had an army of readers. And, I just wanted to go back to Shadow Sith for a second and mention one more thing that makes me very, very hesitant. And it's Luke Skywalker.
Okay.
It's not that the entire trilogy ruined Luke for me. I expressed to you several times that I love what they did with him in The Last Jedi. I really, really enjoy it. But in a way, the sequels have kind of like erased a lot of potential with what Luke was doing in that 30-year span. And honestly, especially with the Rise of the Skywalker, it has like, oh, Luke passed now too, and now I'm Rey Skywalker, which I don't mind at all. But with the conclusion of the Rise of the Skywalker, I am not really looking forward to or excited with anything on Luke. Like that, his 30-year gap, I honestly could live without it. Like I'm not rushing to bookstores to pick up a story on Luke. I'd rather read something on Qui-Gon Jinn and Obi-Wan Kenobi because what the sequels have done is and this is being me, a person who absolutely loves and cherishes the Star Wars canon and Star Wars Legends. I don't want Legends to be canonized again. Like bring the good old days back. Like it's not about that. It's you have a certain perception of who your hero is, and when a story doesn't live up to it and kind of pushes in a completely different direction from it, I don't want to say I'm jaded. Like I'm just not interested anymore. I'm not as excited about Luke anymore. I'm like, okay, get rid of Luke. His story concludes in episode 6. Don't try to squeeze more juice out of him. Leave this legend alone. The more you try to tamper with it, the more people are going to be displeased. Put it aside. Do something different.
Well,
High Republic, I'm eating it all up. I'm sorry.
No, go for it. No.
The High Republic provides that perfect formula of what I was looking for. Take all the staples of Star Wars, create a whole new setting, put all new heroes into it, and that's Star Wars. What makes Star Wars to me personally? It's the kind of stories. It's the kind of heroism. It's the kind of epic lightsaber duels and space battles. This is the DNA of Star Wars. It never has been attached to Skywalker bloodline to me.
Well, at the end of the day, different. I think we all agree that having the option to read, you and I talk about this a lot. Having the option to read these stories is great. If we don't want to partake, we don't have to. Same goes for the High Republic. And this week, and I see the Blue Pig asked a question. This week we had our first new mini-series start in the High Republic era. It is called Trail of Shadows. I keep saying Trial of Shadows. I don't know why, but Trail of Shadows, which is by Daniel Jose Older. We have some of the variant cover art here, which, I mean, if that doesn't set the tone, I think it's a really cool cover. That is, I don't want to spoil it because I don't think you've read it yet. Am I correct? No. Okay. No. So the premise is we have our investigator here, Emmerich, the Jedi with the yellow lightsaber the only Jedi on the cover here. These are just some variant covers I'm showing. This is not the official artwork. He's investigating the death of a Jedi Master, and it's kind of his trail through that investigation. And most folks probably know who that Jedi is that died, and it's been all over Twitter. So I'm not going to say it here in case folks haven't read it.
Yeah.
But I thought it was a really fun first issue. It's going to be a 5-issue miniseries, so nothing like huge. I thought it was really cool. It was a really different Star Wars story to me, but something that I think fits really snug in the High Republic. What the High Republic does, I talked about my video this morning with the review for this, it'll have a burst of content, like 3 books and some comics, and like it'll be like a huge dump. So it's like every 6 months basically. Our next one's coming in January and February of 2022. So it'll be a big content dump, and then we'll get kind of the lull in between, and they'll fill that with comics, some miniseries with Tempest Runner, right? The audio drama.
That's very smart.
I think the same thing. I think it is because you get that constant drip, so those characters don't completely go out of your head, but you also don't get like, oh, I'm tired of the High Republic. I've read like 6 books. It's like a book, and then some comics, then some audiobooks if you want to listen to.
It adjusts levels, and if you're not a comic book fan, you can drop it and say like, no, let me wait for the books and give myself more time to rest. Yeah.
Exactly. So I read this first issue. I thought it was really cool. I would recommend. Oh, we'll talk about Ronin in a second. I jumped the gun. I see. So Blue Pig asked 2 questions. First of all, do you need to read Tempest Runner to read Trail of Shadows? I don't think so after 1 issue, but I mean, I might be proven wrong. I don't think so yet. Number 1. Number 2, I thought it was 5. He said he thinks it's 10 issues. I thought it was a 5-issue miniseries. So I'm trying to see if we have it on here.
I'm so behind on the comics, man.
I'm actually behind on the main line at this point. Let's see. I think it's just 5. I think it's just 5 issues. Well, regardless, so far it's something cool. It's something fun. I'm a sucker. I talked about this in my video yesterday. I'm a total sucker for murder mysteries. You give me like a good hook, but here's the key. I'll get your thoughts. The reward at the end has to match the intrigue they set up at the beginning. So if they set this really intriguing, and then by the end the payoff is really terrible. So this is going to be a hard one because if the story unfolds and it's the intrigue is given satisfying answers and we're loving this journey, we really won't know till the end. From a first episode issue setup, you got my attention. And I think it's just cool they're trying new things too. Like we don't get a lot of Detective Jedi stuff, so that's, to me, it's kind of fun. It reminds me of the episode of the Clone Wars. Remember the episode where the senator is murdered or poisoned, and they have to do the event? Exactly. I love those kind of episodes. Like it kind of reminds me of that. So
what was it called? Senate Murders? Or
something like that. And I thought that was fun. I love those kind of episodes. So this kind of lines up with that. One other thing I will say on the High Republic side. This is kind of goofy. So they're doing, I don't know, I think it's kind of fun. They're doing a 5-issue miniseries as part of the Galactic Star Cruiser launch in Disney World. So for all you general folks out there, you're going to have a chance to reserve your life savings ticket to Galactic Star Cruiser on October 28th. So if you were wanting to do that, you better start prepping and saving really quick because your window is going to open. They're doing a 5-comic miniseries to lead us in, and they're going to take us through this ship. I think it's pronounced the Halcyon, throughout its existence. And this is an old ship, so it's been around. And so you might recognize on this cover, and Nick, we're going to talk about visions here right after this, actually. So hold tight here. This is Buryaga from the High Republic. And so the first issue is going to be in the High Republic era where the ship was in the High Republic, which is, it's kind of fun. I mean, it's kind of fun. You know, I mean,
not necessarily, because Wookiees are supposed to live hundreds of years, right? So it could be past that point. Although he is rocking that High Republic emblem.
He also
his, robe.
He has a Padawan braid as well. So he might still be young. He might die, by the way. He might not make it out of the High Republic era. They kill a lot of characters in the High Republic, which I like, by the way. I think that's a good thing.
I love that.
I think it's great. So anyway, this is kind of fun too. Little fun story. We're gonna get some Star Wars comics to lead you in to this day. Now, let's talk about Visions. First of all, pull up the Ronin's cover because Ronin is tied right into Visions. How is it in real life? Because this picture is fantastic.
It's lovely. They even did like a texture for the cover for a sleeve jacket that gives, it's kind of like old school print kind of like book. The design in the book is pretty nice too. I mean, like, I'm not gonna
I understand.
show, but it's like it's a like it's a pretty cool designed book. Like, it has a nice type to it. It's just nothing beats a physical book.
So
I really like it.
I have read 2 chapters or listened to 2 on Audible so far.
Smells nice too.
I've listened to 2 on Audible, and just for everyone's, the first 2 chapters are basically the duel. They're the short. They basically recap that for you. And now, where we exist today, it seems like our good friend Star Wars Timeline is actually now pretty much caught up on Visions, and we can talk. So we talked about the duel. We talked about Tatooine Rhapsody in our last episode together. But now we're going to get to the meat and potatoes. Although I thought, especially the duel was really solid, one of the best ones.
Yeah.
Let's start with the twins. Now, if you guys don't know, if you haven't watched my channel before, I'm sure you have, but Timeline knows animation. He's done it, so he might have kind of an artist's perspective on this versus just a casual viewer. The twins, I think, had the most polarizing animation style. It was, to me, I would describe it like flat, but uber vibrant. Like the colors are vibrant, the textures feel very flat, if that makes sense. And I thought it was a hyper stylized kind of episode. Everything about it. I thought the characters, the way they battled, the ship design, everything was really hyper realistic. And I thought it was fun. I don't think it was exceptional. I don't think it was garbage. I thought it was fun. Now you got to tell me, what should we know about the twins? What did you think your first time watching it through?
Let me first clarify that I haven't done animation professionally, but I do have a BA degree in animation. I mean, I did my animation thesis film, and I was taught to do traditional hand-drawn animation. And post my graduation in 2007, when they started digitizing it, doing all that stuff, and before that, since I was childhood, since the 80s, I was a huge anime fan as well. You know, the original Guyver, like all these animes that we had access to. When we started watching the new post-2000s, like the millennium and after anime, this is where stuff started getting problematic with me, because what they would do is, before, they used to draw on these cells, right, and photograph them, and then you see it on the screen. It had that very, very human touch to it, that energy in the lines and the drawings and the backdrop painting. It had quality and texture about it. A lot of modern animation, especially anime, and DC is actually home DC animation and home Marvel animation, when they have those like, straight to DVD, Blu-ray kind of like movies, they're guilty of the same thing. What they do is, when you look at a lot of this stuff, it's still old school techniques where stuff is drawn by hand on a Wacom board and then they digitize it. But because it's done on a computer entirely, there is no interaction with the paper, everything looks super flat. And when you look at some other episodes in the Visions, they go out of their way to kind of mimic and bring back that look where they specifically add kind of the texture or filters to their animation, kind of like fog or film grain that brings it back, or kind of like melting kind of like effect, especially when the fire is burning. And you look at this stuff and you can quickly distinguish what has been done through digital effects, like Photoshop, and what has been done through like hand manipulation. And I was very hesitant about this episode when it was seen in the trailer, because like you said, it's a very hyper stylized thing. But then again, the whole idea of the Visions was to look at the color palette, kind of like throw it all on the canvas and see what sticks, to give the creators a full reign and range of styles and voices to explore and see if any one of them hits something special, hits the gold. So I was kind of on the fence prior to watching it. I'm like, okay, let me see it. Within the first few seconds of watching the episode, my immediate reaction was like, well, actually, this is done by a good studio. Man, these guys know how to animate. It's not cheap. The fluidity of movement when they do camera pans or angle changes, when they see the troopers standing in those epic kind of like ranks and stuff, it's solid art. And you know what? The animation quickly won me over because, and this may be controversial, I thought the story just kicks ass, man. What the story is, it's a very over-the-top representation of what one of the concepts of Star Wars, right? The duality of nature, the yin and yang, the positive and the negative. And here they very literally split it right down the middle between two twins, right? And the fact that they're fighting on top of Star Destroyer in open space, the fact that they have these very kind of screamy and hypersensitive and emotional anime line delivery, I felt it only adds to it. Because what it's trying to do is not to bring anime into Star Wars familiar zone. It's trying to take Star Wars and make it fresh and make it bloom in an entirely new light. And I would say that Vision, as we discussed the episodes, it separates the episodes into two specific categories. One category that feels much closer and much more familiar.
Yeah.
It's still done through anime filter, but much more familiar. And Duel is a perfect example of it.
Yeah.
And there are episodes like the one with the Astro Boy kid. Remind me the name of that.
Toby.
Yeah. When you look at it, my brother, again, he's watching it with me. He's like, what the F am I watching? Like, dude, what is this? And I'm watching it with him. I'm like, you know what? It's not thrilling me. It's not blowing me away, but it is. Because it's fresh, it's playful, it's not bound by limitations, and that's what makes it awesome.
I don't think there was a single episode of Visions that I thought was bad.
Yeah.
I think there were ones that just didn't work as well for me. And we'll talk about those. So the twins to you sounds like a success. I thought
it definitely is.
I really appreciated their, to your point, their fineness with being like, this is weird and wonky, and we're just kind of going for it.
Yeah.
Like, the droid is wearing a space helmet, but the two are out on the ship not. Like, they just don't... weirdness like that, where it feels intentional, like they wanted to be on the top. I think the twins is a good time. I think it even ends with kind of a message of there could be a story here where he's like, hey, I'm going to get my sister back. I'm going to get my sister back. Kind of very Luke Vader-esque, where he wants to save that person, not even kill them. Not like, dude, I got to kill my sister. She's wacky. So I thought that was cool as well. Okay. Well, 2 thumbs up for the twins. Now, this next one, man. The Village Bride, to me, was so good.
Fire.
I thought this one was so good.
Yeah.
And even the poster they released, because these are all the posters Disney released for each episode. Even this poster is dope. But you would show me this poster, and you'd say, hey, here's my new Star Wars, show. And I'd be like, boring. Yeah, exactly. Like, okay, I don't care. And then you watch that episode. I just got to say this off the top. The score in that episode is so insanely good. The fact that it's not released yet is an insult to all of us. And let me just say real quick, let me just give you guys some insider tips. Okay? If you like me and you're checking every day waiting for them to release this and they aren't because they hate us,
it's on YouTube.
Go to Samuel Kim. He does remixes of Star Wars songs, and he put an hour mix of the Village Bride, and you can just listen to that thing on repeat as you're working, as you're doing your homework. So put that on, crank that out. That's an awesome thing. So I'm just gonna throw that out there. Not gonna play it here because I will get copyright strike. But I thought this episode, beyond the score, which I think was literally 10 out of 10 good.
Yeah.
I thought the episode had such a good feel to it. Such heroics, such interesting world in 15 minutes. In 15 minutes, I was like, this is something. And it felt very, like you kind of said a second ago, this one felt very Star Wars to me, done in animation. Like, this one didn't seem like, this is totally weird. Like, it was like, no, this feels like I'm in the Star Wars universe. I'm just seeing something totally different. So this is, when I put my episode rankings out, when I put my review out, this is what I had at the top was The Village Bride. I absolutely loved this one. And a lot of it is just the music was just.
And I want to add something that each one of these episodes is done by a master class studio, because in 18 or 15 whatever minutes, they're able to demonstrate very strong storytelling skills. And what is a strong story? It's not necessarily that you know the beginning, middle, and an end. Yeah, that's a very linear, traditional formula for storytelling in blockbuster Hollywood cinema. But then you have your Tarantinos, and you have your anime, and you have your Russian cinema or European cinema, where it's a lot more philosophical or character-driven. It doesn't necessarily have a resolution at the end. What's important and what completely delivers in each and every episode is a concept of world. Something is happening there, and by the time it's over, you either don't care for it or you want to see more of it, but you definitely can't walk away and say like, well, it's about nothing. No, that's not true. Each and every episode like presents you with, this is, I think, the triumph of storytelling when the credits roll, whether it's 20 minutes or 3 hours. Look, my animation professor told me, you should be able to tell your story in 3 sentences. If you can't, in 3 seconds. If you can't tell your animation piece in 3 seconds, it ain't gonna work in 3 hours. And each one of these episodes, like I'm reiterating myself, but it's like I walked away, I was like, man, are they gonna make a show out of this? Like, are we getting a whole season of The Duel or something?
Well, I'll tell you, like, I see chat right now, so Blue Pig, Nick, Sean, Seamus, Star Wars Complete, everyone is like, yeah, The Village Bride rocked. And it did. It was so good. And I don't think anyone really expected this one. I think that's one of the reasons it was such a win, is like, I turned this one on and I was like, I don't even know what I'm watching. It flashes to this guy wearing a weird helmet, performing like what looks like experiments, and you're like, I don't really know what's going on. And he's like, hey, come with me. It's this girl with this cool mask on. He's like, hey, I want you to come see something. There's this really interesting thing they do with the art. When they zoom out, they give them like Ditto faces, like the Pokemon Ditto, like the 2 dots, like they don't give them any. And so you're kind of like, this is interesting. What's going on? And then, it shows this man carrying his wife up, well, his soon to be wife up a hill. And you're like, what am I watching? Like, there's nothing overtly Star Wars yet. There's nothing, even sci-fi yet. This could be like, besides the weird helmet, it could be like feudal Japan for all we know. But then the music starts. The first go of the theme as they're crawling up. A lot of talk about nature in this one. A lot about how the world is healing, how the planet is
Josh,
connected. Yeah.
If you were to name one animated film that this reminds you of, what would it be?
One animated film this reminds me of. Well, you obviously have something. You obviously have one right on the tip of your tongue. Why don't you tell me what it is?
Miyazaki's Princess Mononoke, right away.
Oh, I've never seen that, so I can't. It couldn't have hit me. Whatever the studio was, by the way, I think nailed like the total package. I think the animation balance with the visuals was really well done. But as the story progresses and you get exposed to this world, it's nothing grand. It's not like there's an evil Sith Lord coming and he's got the secret. Like the stakes don't feel that high, right? You're exposed to this village in this kind of unique situation and the sacrifices they're going through, and a Jedi who has some sort of code she's kind of dealing with, etc. And then, you get your end kind of heroic moment. And it feels so heroic. And it's only been like 15, 13 minutes at this time. And it's this swell. And the stakes are like a couple of bandits in a small village. It's not like the whole galaxy's at stake here. But it feels like such a heroic moment and a rival. Yeah. Just phenomenal. I thought this one was absolutely phenomenal. I don't know. Yeah. I don't know where you ranked this one among yours, but this one.
I didn't even rank him. It was either awesome or like, interesting, but not for me.
Yeah, this one was just great, man. I love this one. I cannot. I know. I'm being goofy, but in all seriousness, the impact of a score on a piece of media just cannot be understated. It really can't. Tomorrow, on Saturday, we're gonna get trailers for DC movies. We were talking about at the beginning of the stream. If you guys are just showing up.
Yeah.
The music in those trailers will oftentimes dictate alone whether you like it or not. That's how important the music is to even marketing material, right? And so when you hear something scored, I mean, it's gorgeous. I'm immediately like, I love these characters, love this world. They've already put me in the right mood, the right state of mind. They have me feeling what they want me to feel. They want me to feel this journey. They want me to feel, because at the end, they take a lot of notes from the beginning theme we heard as they climbed up the mountain together. And then it's this like more kind of swelling and triumphant version. And you get goosebumps. I mean, I literally did when I watched it the first time, just like, this is amazing. So anyway, I've praised this one enough, but this is a home run to me. This is so good.
No, it was, and absolutely was. I agree.
If you pitched it to me, I would have been like, oh, okay, a village.
Give me the show. Like, make a show, dude.
Phenomenal. You know, this is one too that we could never see this universe again. I could only see the 17 minutes, and it still like holds a place in my heart. You know what I mean? Like,
let me give you hope. Imagine. Do you know what Shonen Jump is?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You know how each month they would have like a combination of Yu-Gi-Oh, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
Let's get Shonen Jump anime style, and like next year release season 2, continuing each and every episode's story.
Yeah, and we're gonna talk on the next one. The next one, I think, probably more than there's probably 2 or 3 that I would just love to see, entire shows, books, comics in their era. The Village Bride to me, I think could be a perfect short. Even though I loved it, I could never see it again, and it would have had that emotional impact. It would have had that great tale, that truly Star Wars moments, and we'll never see those characters again. And that's a testament to that studio. They told their story in 17 minutes and gave me the full experience. Now, the Ninth Jedi is right up there at the top with me too. Back to back. So I talked about this in my review. I know it doesn't matter because it's anthology, but when I watched them all together, you watch The Village Bride and you watch The Ninth Jedi, and you're like, you're up at the top of the mountain. Those two are incredible. And so, like, then you watch Toby, and, like, it's not even Toby's fault, really, because you're just kind of like, well, Toby, I'm sorry. These two were just so good. Like, these two were so good.
That's not fair.
Because I think The Ninth Jedi, I think, kept that real Star Wars feel, but did some interesting things with the lore. First of all, they gave us, like, Star Wars mood rings. I'm going to call them that. Lightsaber mood rings. Because your connection to the Force, your strength in the Force, dictated what your blade would do, which I thought was really fun. I think that's a fun idea. And also, they gave us one of the coolest looking Jedi we've seen, because you see this masked Ultron looking dude in the trailer, and I was like, oh, okay, that's a badass looking Sith. And it turns out he's the good guy, which I thought was really cool kind of like play there. It was like, hey, they can look cool too. This one to me had the most interesting world. This concept that the Jedi have lost lightsabers. They've lost their signature weapons, and they're on a quest to reclaim them. And there's this guy out there who's building them to recreate. And at the same time, the Sith are out trying to prevent them from finding those weapons. I thought this one, to me, this feels like you could have multiple seasons, multiple books, because this world feels really cool. What was your read on The Ninth Jedi? How'd you feel?
I got to talk about that episode in conjunction with the Jedi Fallen Order video game. In regards to Visions and just Disney era content in general, the Ninth Jedi, to me personally, hit that perfect Star Wars mark I've been waiting for since 2015. I did not expect it. I did not anticipate it. It wasn't just a cool factor. It brought me back to 80s. It brought me back to my childhood, where what my own interpretation of, hey, what's happening in this galaxy? What's happening outside of the, beyond the borders of the screen? This episode takes the event, right, the Jedi Purge, that has been explored and done in Dark Horse comic books. It has been done in Bad Batch. It's being done in Clone Wars era, the Clone Wars the show.
Yeah.
This episode captures something that is you can't assemble from pieces and put together and say, this is what the audience needs at this time and point. This is what is going to sell. This is what's going to be these stuff. There's this synergy and this alchemical process that happens that it just comes at the right time, at the right moment, and the right minds put together this story that, to me, and the same goes with the Jedi Fallen Order, the reason that I mentioned it, those two stories for me tap into that hidden layers of the great Star Wars potential, what it can be, of a story that goes beyond just, but because to me what makes Ninth Jedi special, it's not just the cool lightsabers. It's not the skin of it. It's not the surface.
Yeah.
It's the story that it's trying to tell you, that it's like, hey, these scared people in a galaxy, and a huge veil of darkness has been put over the galaxy. They don't know what the future holds for them because the Sith, these tyrants, are ruling the galaxy now. And where is the hope is going to come from? And then we get back to the question of Luke Skywalker. And then the Fallen Jedi, Fallen Order video game presents you with Kyle Kestis, another dude on the periphery that we have no idea who this guy is. And the similarity between what the Ninth Jedi was doing with its idea with bringing these Force potentials into the fold, and what the Jedi Fallen Order is doing with Vader's castle. I don't know if you've completed the game or not.
Yes, Fallen Order.
Remember the part where it's the second half of the game where Vader, we see his castle and we see his experiments, how he's bringing these Inquisitors into it. And I mentioned on my channel to people that Inquisitors is not a novel, a new concept. It didn't start in Rebels. It's a concept that was introduced decades before in original Star Wars radio drama.
Right, yeah.
That there were prototypes similar to Vader. And when a video game or a short episode like this is able to just reach for that little thread that is hidden, that's almost invincible, and just pull it ever so lightly, and I'm like, oh my God, these guys are nailing it. They're hitting just the right spot. At least this was my personal take on it. This, to me, supersedes the sequels. It supersedes most of the stuff I've seen from Disney or Star Wars.
You probably even like it better. You probably like it better than the prequels a lot.
It blew me away.
Yeah,
it really blew me away.
Yeah, the Ninth Jedi to me is about its peak. I mean, of what, to your point, what it could be. And this is why when I read the Ninth Jedi, I think everyone. There was an article this week that the director of this said he wrote the whole story out. Like, he's got a whole story written. If they give him a green light, he's got it all. And you could feel that. That. Let's look at the length. This one, I think this was the longest one. This was the 21-minute one, and you could tell that. And you did really hit a nail on the head there with the type of external world building we were getting with that one. We kind of were getting the feel of the galaxy. We were getting what was going on. We were getting, again, the concept that I've said it once before, but that we've lost the lightsaber. Like we've lost, like we don't even know how to make them anymore. Almost, like at this lost secret, like losing, something so iconic to them, and then. You dived into the deeper portions, the bigger meanings. Even on the surface level, they do a lot of unique things. We talked about the lightsaber idea. We talked about that, but also like the oh snap moment where all the Jedi turn out to be Sith. I didn't expect it. I thought what everyone thought. I thought this is gonna be really predictable. The guy who's luring them is a Sith, and he's gonna kill all those Jedi, and it's gonna be like a battle between him and no. It was like he actually was a good guy. The Sith had killed the Jedi who were sent those, and they went. It's like, wow, like what a cool turn. I didn't expect it. It was cool.
And Josh, it's also, I don't know if you're familiar. There's for those of you guys who grew up with martial art movies of the 70s, the Shaw Brothers collection, the Kung Fu movies. It emulates the plot line from a legendary martial arts movie called The Seven Deadly Venoms, where a master and his youngest student is after these 6 masters that he personally has trained, and they're all wearing masks, and you don't know their identities, and each one specializes in a deadly martial art, and they all went rogue, and they're all now killers and assassins. They're not using his teachings in a good spirit. They're using it for evil, and he's using his youngest protege and himself as a lure to find these dudes and go and take care of them. Like, hold on a second. Yeah. This is like doing homage to Seven Deadly Venoms. That's dope, man. That was really great.
This is a great one. This is phenomenal. And I think, when we look back at the list, as I just kind of joked about, but it's true, I think The Village Bride and The Ninth Jedi leading into Toby, I think it actually kind of hurt Toby. Through no fault of its own, because I know there's a lot of people, and some folks in chat might agree, Toby is just very different. It's just very different. It is. It's very whimsical and very Astro Boy looking and kind of just goofy. And it had a weird editing style to it where it just kind of flowed. Do you know what I mean? Like scenes just kind of happened, and the sky was even funky looking, and everything kind of moved. And I think that it doesn't help it. Like if this came next to Tatooine Rhapsody, you might be like, oh, okay, yeah, these are kind of the whimsical ones. Right, these are kind of the whimsical ones. It was just like these two epic. You get the Village Bride with just this triumphant, and then you got the Ninth Jedi like, whoa, and then it's like, hey, I'm Toby, I'm just this guy. It's like, okay, so you know what I mean? I think that hurt Toby a little bit. You can't help it, you know? Overall for me, Toby was cute. I thought Toby was cute. I didn't particularly like love it. You know, it had a Star Wars feel to it. This is, like you said, this is an example of an anime that brought Star Wars to anime, that was more anime with Star Wars than Star Wars in an animated fashion. And I just thought it was fine. You know, it was probably my least favorite, but it's not because it's bad. It's just not my personal interest. What did you think about our friend Toby?
There's very few things I got to say about it. I thought that the art style was phenomenal.
I'll tell you what, this poster right here, that's a pretty awesome poster. I'll give Toby some credit there. That's a pretty cool poster. I
felt that the story, like the passage of time, kind of was rushed a little bit, and it felt like the filmmaker had a lot more story to tell. But I felt the art style was just phenomenal, brilliant stuff.
Very interesting.
Beautifully animated. And one thing that I appreciated about it, this was my least favorite episode, but what I really appreciated about it, it's if you can picture yourself for a moment as a 4 or 5-year-old and your first introduction to Star Wars, what this episode does, it disassembles Star Wars in its most basic elements. It's almost like that germinating idea of like, hey, what is Star Wars to a 5-year-old? You know what I'm saying? It's sure. Like, it's like a kid, a 5-year-old probably doesn't understand iconography. He doesn't understand like, oh, lightsabers, it means it's Star Wars. It's like, for a kid, how do you lure them in? How do you get their attention? Visuals. It has to look pretty first. I'm pretty sure a lot of the stuff that you saw as a younger kid that you watch now, you're like, oh my God, the story is kind of crappy. Yeah. But I still like it. Something still pulls you in. And it's the visuals. And here, what this guy was trying to do, very cognitively, he was trying to reach out to the very young mind and say like, oh, these are your first steps in understanding what Star Wars is. You're welcome to the party. It's not for the rest of the adult guys or the younger adults. It's for 5-year-olds.
Star Wars Complete actually just said something in chat. He said, Toby wasn't my favorite at first, but after I watched it again, I realized it kind of captured my childhood perfectly. I remember being 5 years old on the playground pretending to be a Jedi. And he does. He is like, I'm going to be a Jedi. And even the way he like fights the guy, it feels very kiddish. It's kind of like, ha, it's not like some epic battle. And that is definitely fair. And this does speak to what you and I talk about a lot, which is where we are when we watch something matters. Our age group, our mindset. So, to me, where I am in my age group, like, yeah, Toby doesn't hit as hard for me, right? The Ninth Jedi and the Village Bride are like, woo, like that's me. And this one is more like, okay, it's for someone else. Doesn't mean it's bad though. It really doesn't. It just doesn't mean I personally didn't enjoy it. I think you hit the nail on the head with one of my kind of, I don't want to say criticisms, but one of my notes. This one felt like it needed more time. It felt like the director did really want to tell a lot, but kind of squeezed it into 13 minutes. That's a short window, right? And obviously you can tell an effective story in 13 minutes, but maybe not fully fleshed to the level it could have been. So, Toby,
quick question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Have you seen an anime called Metropolis? It came out in mid-2000s. So it was a feature film, a Japanese feature film, which used traditional animation and some CGI effects, but very, very effectively. It almost looks like a Disney movie. It basically took the original German black and white film, right, the great sci-fi epic, The Metropolis, and it made a modern anime version of it. And what's funny about it, it has almost identical style to this because it also emulates Astro Boy, but the story is for adults. And I would be very curious to hear your thoughts. Like, even for a snippet, if you go see like 5-10 minutes of it on YouTube, how would you embrace it as an adult of having this particular anime style, but a story that is like built up for adults, right?
Yeah, that's interesting because you're right. The animation style, for some reason, to me, does feel childish. Not because it's amateur, but because it just seems its style is aimed at kids. Yeah. Right, exactly. Great poster though, man. Toby, I really like this poster. This is a really cool one. This one feels very Star Wars to me. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, after Toby, and see, this is, again, I feel bad for Toby, because after Toby, we go back to Elder, which is like probably my second or third favorite. Elder also I thought was really darn good. The Elder to me had the most High Republic feel to me, where it felt,
I knew you were going to say that.
Yeah, it felt very Bell and Loden to me. Now, obviously, Loden might be a little more lighthearted than the Master we saw here. He was a little more stoic. But this one was really cool. I really liked the very intentionally drawn storms, the kind of ominous, like, shadow lingering over, right? It's like, okay, we're on here, we sense a dark presence, and you see that reflected through the environment. And you're hinted at things in this universe that are very fascinating. Okay, well, are the Sith extinct? What's going on here? You know, we're encountering this guy's Sith ship. You know, we have our confrontation where, you know, at the end, it's like, yeah, that dude, if he was in his prime, would have probably wrecked me. He was pretty OP. Was that guy even a Sith? He's got the yellow eyes. You know, you get these questions that are start popping up. But overall, in effect, I think the only, and I'm going to say this like very, very minor, I think the only kind of weakness for me is it is weird the Padawan lived through what seemed like a death blow. You know, I don't really know. You could argue that maybe he hurt him in a way to where it would bait the Master to come so he'd have a higher level of challenge, which is fine. But that to me felt a little bit like they weren't ready to go full dark. You know, they kind of had to like step back a little bit. That was my only like super minor thing I didn't love, is that I felt like they let him get off easy, which, you know, it's fine. It's all made up, but I don't know. I felt like it would have gone to, maybe it would have enhanced it to me if they killed his Padawan, because that's hard for Jedis to lose their Padawan. We know a lot in Star Wars about Padawans losing their masters. We've seen Obi-Wan lose Qui-Gon. We've seen Bell lose Loden. We've seen we've seen Anakin lose Obi-Wan, right? It's not often we see the inverse, where the master loses the Padawan. And it's something that, of course, we wouldn't have had like a ton of time to explore it, but would have kind of, to me, taken it that like little half step up. But minor nitpick, this one was really cool to me. What'd you think about the Elder?
Before I move on with my opinion, let me challenge your criticism.
Yeah, go for it.
Let's shift the focus from the apprentice for a moment and look at the villain. What if he's using the kid to get to his master? Because the master would sense him. He would sense the peril his Padawan is in,
right,
and would kind of like interrupt his game.
Totally, I could totally see that, and
I would argue that makes much more for villainous bastard than it would for a regular Sith. Like, oh, you're dead, now on with the master.
It does, and you could also make an argument to tie in with you that the way that this Sith guy, the Sith, you know, user talked was very much like, I want a challenge. Like, I'm here.
It's not about killing.
It's not about like, I don't even care if I die here. I want to be threatened, because he dies and he's kind of like, oh, I got debated, you know, like he wasn't like, oh, no, you know, he didn't seem to care that he's dying. You know, it didn't seem to really even faze him. However ancient he was, it was kind of cool that when he died, he just turned to death and blew up his ship, which I really liked that, because it was kind of like
ship.
I like that. It was like, what did he have on there he didn't want us to find? See, that to me, that I really like that. That was a cool little intrigue, a cool little thread line to follow these characters on. So this one to me was, I don't want to get it twisted. This is like exceptional. Like this Village Bride, Elder, Duel, and Ninth Jedi, to me, those four are like S tier. Like I would show them to any fan of Star Wars, any fan of anime, and I'd have no worry they wouldn't think it was great. I'd be like, this is great, and I'm going to stand and die on this hill. These are amazing. All the other ones to me are a lot more. La Panochos, we'll get there in a second. We'll get there. You tell me what you think about the Elder.
The Elder, it opened a couple of really interesting avenues to explore. First and foremost, I was really intrigued that he mentions he's not a Sith.
Yeah.
But there were two really cool visual cues for me as Legends reader that kind of got my imagination fired up. First, his ship. When you look at it, you look at the design of his ship. In the Legends and Fate of the Jedi, the last series of Star Wars Legends, there's a book called Omen. Fate of the Jedi Omen. And in it, what happens is they tie in the era of modern Star Wars, where Luke, he already has a son, you know, and you understand that the modern era, and they bridge the gap with thousands of years earlier, where an ancient Sith colony lives in a remote world somewhere, and now the ship from that colony is traveling and enters the familiar space. And when I look at this guy, and the fact that he's saying that he's not a Jedi, I'm like, uh-huh. So it's got to be a different faction. There's got to be a different interpretation and a whole religious cult that follows the Force. But it's not about the Jedi versus Sith beef.
Yep.
Because as you mentioned before, there was this sort of adversity to him, but not necessarily just villainy. It's almost like the Lone Wolf and the Cub samurai films, right? Where the protagonist himself is neither good or a bad guy. He's the force of nature with a sword. And you don't want to mess with this guy, right? And it doesn't matter who gets in his way. If you stop this guy, you're done. You're shredded into a salad. That's what this villain felt like here. And it was really an interesting and unique touch.
Yeah.
The rest of the episode, the action once again blew me away, because when you have an anime and you expect the kind of like sort of Naruto / Dragon Ball Z insane sort of action, right? That's what you buy the tickets for. And an anime grounds its duel in a very kind of like solid and physics-based battle. It's like, dude. And you see those turns and like, and the, you know, follow through when they like the lightsabers hit and one person passes real quick. I'm like, bro, I need a season of this. You gotta continue this stuff, because I understand also what you're saying is that should have student, you know, that Padawan lived or died. I felt like the creator of this episode felt like, I sort of want to kill him, but not yet. What if I get the green light, right, and I get my full season? That's
a fair point. That's a fair point.
Right?
And
I loved it.
The Elder and the Ninth Jedi, I do feel like the most ripe for a lot more. Not that the other ones couldn't. The duel, we got Ronin, and with the Village Bride, I mean, I definitely could see more, but it felt like it could be enough. These two, though, exposed us to worlds still to explore. And that was, I think, some of their biggest strengths. All right. Coming down to our last couple, we have, La Pinocho. This one to me was good, not great. It's up there for me. I know a lot of folks who really liked it, but I was not as big a fan as La Pinocho as I was of the others. And why is that? I think for me, this one felt like it really could have used a little more time. I felt like they kind of jumped the gun a little bit. They did some time passages really fast. And I know you're given a blank check. Here, write a Star Wars. And you're like, okay, I'm going to tell the story. I might never get another chance at this. I'm going to tell as much as I can. So I don't blame them. But I felt like with the sister relationship, we did some quick cuts. They tried to show their past and their present and they're falling apart. And it was just like kind of a blink to me. So that's the only reason I don't think it worked as well. I think there was a little too much story to tell in a small window, if that makes sense. What we did get was interesting. You know, it had a lot of like, what does it mean to be family, which I thought was cool. And some stuff we do see in Star Wars. I thought it had cool design, cool art style. You know, I thought it was an interesting kind of like the Empire is what's the word I'm blanking on? Oh my goodness. It was kind of the Empire was in control. I'm totally blanking on the word, but regardless, it was kind of an interesting world they were in, where they were trying to
colonizing.
Basically. And they were trying to like kind of rebel a little bit. Occupation, that was what I was looking for. It was kind of an interesting, like, they were the occupation they had where like the workers were kind of revolting, the family clan. It was kind of an interesting situation we were seeing that felt familiar. I just feel like this one needed more time. You know what I mean? Just a little more time. I was impressed that they were willing to have like the siblings go against each other. I thought that was kind of a cool idea, but it just, to me, needed more. I just needed more time with it. That's just, I guess, my general thought. What did you think about La Pinocho?
Let me just respond.
Yeah. No, that's all right.
I gotta say that I was also on the fence about it in the trailer, because I thought, okay, so what we're doing here, we're taking a very familiar visual anime trope of like putting this fuzzy creature, right, bipedal creature in it. I'm like, where's this going? It's going to be like one of those whimsical ones. and then it's really dark, and then it's like talks about colonialism. And if we recall Tom Cruise's The Last Samurai movie, it's basically a social commentary of colonization and a westernization of Japan. Really, that's what this episode is about, because a lot of anime is known for doing social commentary. When you take their Godzilla movies, when you take Akira, everything that has a nuclear explosion, it's a social commentary on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. It's a social commentary that, like, the Japanese social conscience always goes back to their history and tries to reflect on it, and they do it through anime a lot. That's why a lot of anime is not for kids. Boy, this one was not for kids, man. It touched on some deeper, darker themes, and now she's there. She is basically Tom Cruise from The Last Samurai. She's adapted into this family, right?
Yeah.
To be honest with you, I didn't feel that it rushed things. I really felt that it spent enough sufficient time for the build-up for me to care, because when it comes to the crux of it, and it's really about these two sisters. And the father basically tried to instill these values in them. But because they're so different individuals, one of them ideologically believes the Empire is a good for the galaxy. This one,
that's right.
Preach. Yeah, right. Yes, it's not good. But I was very pleasantly surprised that it took me to these very dark questions that it tried to tackle. And what I absolutely loved in this episode is that it did not feel like it was done on the computer. This is the particular episode I was talking about, where when you look at just at the two characters talking, and let's say you look at the surface on the face, like a cheek of the father when he's talking, or the mustache, it's not one solid color. Well, it is, but what they did was they added on top of it this added film grain filter, and it really makes it feel like, dude, the greatest anime was like 70s, 80s, and 90s. I'm sorry. Right? And when you look at that older period, even compare Dragon Ball Z GT or the newer series to the original, when you pop in those, the originals, something about the animation quality, that those lines, they have an energy of their own. And as I was watching this episode, I'm like, dude, the character designs are stellar. They're just killing it. The world design, those Japanese buildings, architecture trapped inside of this industrial kind of like complex. I'm like, whoa, man, this is just like, it opens the box out of imagination. Once again, give me more. This was right there on top with the best episodes for me.
I absolutely want to see more of it. There's no doubt about it. I felt like there could have been more payoff with the sister turning if we had more time, is the best way I'd put it, because I didn't really see them grow as sisters together. I was told they did, and you could tell. I think the father really comes off as the most sympathetic character in a lot of ways, intentionally, where he's trying to kind of stand up for his beliefs, stand up for his culture, save his daughter. He becomes very, very dark. You're right. Absolutely. It goes to a lot of dark places. And again, there's a couple of these that are ripe for more. I mean, absolutely. You could tell more. And La Pinocho is one of them. I felt really bad for the little droid too. It was sad.
Yeah, man, that was tragic.
Sad.
I was like,
he has the picture, the family picture. That's sad stuff, man. That was sad stuff.
How did you like the anime version of oh my God, Director Krennic? That guy on the left, right?
Yeah, the hairstyles were kind of funny to me. They look super anime. They look super anime. Like those hairs are like, okay, we're an anime here. Yeah. I think you hit the nail on the head in a better way than I was trying to get the words out. The Japanese architecture inside the really like industrial feel was a really cool flow to it. Another big win, 19 minutes, really good. I think it's pretty obvious to those who spent time in this, the winners. I think everyone knows who I feel in my heart that there's a strong opportunity we see again. I think we obviously are getting more of the duel this week. You got the Ronin, that you can learn more about these characters. But I think the Ninth Jedi, the Elder, and La Pinocho seem right. But again, huge Village Bride. Village Bride's my favorite. But Village Bride to me, and this is a testament to how good I think it was. If I never saw the Village Bride universe again, I wouldn't really be like, oh no, because I think it was such a good story. I don't really care if I'd like to, but if I don't, I was satisfied. It was a good meal, Now we go to the last one, which you have not watched yet.
I'm going to say something controversial here.
Okay, tell me.
It was so bad that I didn't watch it, and you can totally spoil it for me.
Okay, so
I have no idea what it's like. I'm still gonna.
No, what is what? Can someone tell me how to pronounce this? I think it's Akakiri.
Akaki.
Akakiri,
maybe the
Akakiri?
way they
Yeah,
put the whatever.
this was down. Okay, I'm gonna say this, and maybe folks will know what I mean. I feel
That's
like
an interesting
I
poster.
didn't get it, and not that I didn't understand the premise. Like I do. I just feel like maybe I missed something. Have you ever watched something and everyone like you're like, did I watch? Like, what did I miss? Like, why did I not? Why did that not work for me? It's a really great poster, but I say
Cowboy Bebop did not work for me. I can't stand that series.
This one to me was just so weird,
Hmm.
and not weird good, but like there was just some weirdness to it. And maybe if I
Confusing?
watched, like choice wise, I would say it felt so fast, and it's 12 minutes and 59 seconds. They did some real interesting like cutting to me, where they'd kind of just go to a scene, and I found it very unflow. Like it didn't flow well for me. Number one.
Give me the premise of the story, like without the ending.
Okay, so general. Let me recall here. General high level. We have a king who was murdered by his sister.
Okay.
And his daughter is trying to kind of go back and get justice, reclaim the throne. And she uses this Jedi, which we realize that she had some sort of friendship with or some sort of family connection to kind of go deal with that justice. As that's happening, this Jedi, it looks like his name is Subaki,
Tsubaki.
is having these dark side visions or visions. They're dark. I don't know if they're dark side. They're dark visions. They're like flat. They're like weird. And he'll wake up like in cold sweats, etc. And that's the general premise. I won't tell you where it goes. So on their journey to the kingdom, so they have these two characters who I think are maybe kind of part of the genre. You have like these two, what I'd call like kind of goofy guides. They're like the guides on their journey, who are really kind of wonky, and they don't really, I don't know, they feel like they don't really have the same level of maybe seriousness that the other characters do, and they're kind of, I just didn't like, first of all, and this is the kind of polar opposite of The Village Bride, I thought the score in this episode was bad. I did not like it. Now, Sean just said, I'm so surprised the episode isn't more popular. I like the ending chilled me. I would agree the ending is actually really good. I think that's probably the best part about it. I really like the ending. Like, the very end is like, okay, that was kind of a cool ending. But, like, everything else to me, the score didn't work for me. The animation didn't really work for me. And I think, you know, that kind of takes you out. I mean, it sounds sad, but it's like if you're not really into the music and you don't really like the visuals, that's 2 for 3. You know, the story can only be so good because I'm not enjoying it. You can tell by the poster. Do you see this? It is very much this color palette. It's very much that yellowed, red. And you can see even in this little clip they put on here.
Now, does the Jedi by the end announce that he's Akakari Skywalker or not?
No, he does not.
No, he does not.
He does not. I can't tell you because that's probably the only good part about it is the end. Okay. So I'll let you get there.
I'm looking forward to it. Based on the description you gave me, I'm hyped.
This would be one that didn't surprise me if you liked it better than me. You know, you might be like, oh, you know anime better than me, so you might be like, oh, this makes me think of this or that. You know, this.
It's the reason I've been like delaying these because I wanted to see them with my brother because seeing his reaction is priceless. He's like, Ben, where are you coming from? Like, are you my brother? What are we watching here? Like, he would hate an episode, like the twins one, and I would love it.
Yeah. So we'll talk about this in the coming weeks. You'll have to tell me what you think about Akakari. So that was Visions. I think overall, huge success. I think we all saw the trailers and we were like, what to expect? Phenomenal. It's given us a new Star Wars book, which has a gorgeous cover. And I had a couple other things to say, but I'm going to save those for next week because they're longer. I'm going to do a couple short things here before we sign off.
Yep.
So why don't you take us away with this timeline? What's going on over here? What did you...
All right, dudes, guys, for those of you who can observe my collection, you know, I collect tons of like Switch physical games, PS4 games, and so forth. We have been getting Star Wars re-releases, right? These HD ports are straight up conversions. Asper Media, you know, the German studio is going to remake Knights of the Old Republic. They have been dropping these games that you guys are getting digitally. They have been doing them physical release through if I can. Oh my God. Here we go. So for those of you who collect may know limited run games. Josh, I don't know if you're that big of a collector, but it's a small publisher that did have these games physically available. You had to like be there and order from their website right away, and these were available physically in very, very limited quantities. Now, they just announced that for the first time publicly, you guys will be able to get these two collections. Josh, please confirm the date for me. I believe it's in October they're dropping.
October 26th.
October 26th, these 4 games are going to be bundled 2 per pack. And then don't forget that I believe, is it next year? We're also getting Knights of the Old Republic on Switch.
Yes, you're right. We are next year. That'll be kind of cool too, especially with the remake coming out.
Yeah. So for a bit of news for your gamers, whoever watched the channel, we're excited to get physical copies like I do. This is your best chance. You know what? These look kind of dope. I might go ahead and just pick those up as well.
It is kind of a smart idea, the combo pack.
Yeah,
kind of like 2 for 1. You could do a throwback. Well, after that, I'm gonna call it on that note. I will say in the coming weeks, I want to talk about this Reddit post with you. I'd love to see your thoughts. I made a video on it this week. And as I read it, I was like, it's on Reddit. I got it. No. But as I read through it, I felt like, I'd like to get Timeline's thoughts on this because he might have a vastly different view. But that's all I had to cover tonight. I will say again, for the folks who showed up late, we got a fun month coming up, non-Star Wars. I'm always, for repping other. We got Dune next weekend, which Star Wars Timeline on his channel has a book talking about Dune, or a video talking about Dune and Star Wars kind of compared. We also have DC Fandom on Saturday, so new DC trailers. You guys know I'm a huge fan of DC properties. If you guys don't know, there's one non-Star Wars video on my channel, and it shouldn't be there. It's not my channel, but when I watched the Snyder Cut of Justice League, I wanted to make a video about it because I just want to talk about it. I was like 2 or 3 in the morning because it's a 4-hour movie, and I talked about it because I love those characters, and I thought it was a really fun thing to talk about. So I hope you guys enjoy those kind of fun things as well. More Star Wars on the horizon. Ronin, have you finished it yet? I forgot to ask you at the beginning.
What, the book?
Ronin? Yeah, I assume not.
I haven't started yet.
Yeah, you're not a book. You don't rush books.
I don't rush books. I read when I read. I want to digest it in my own time. Before we part, I want us both to make a quick prediction. If you want to make it a bet, by all means. But can we both make a prediction?
Let's do it. What is it?
Star Wars Vision Shonen Jump Season 2 next year. Is it happening or not?
We're going to get Season 2. There's no doubt in my mind.
Yeah,
we have got to get a Season 2.
I think so.
I mean, look at how much we just spent talking about those. They're like 4 weeks old, and we could still just keep talking about them. I mean, they're just so good. Mm-hmm. They're so good. Well, to everyone who hopped in, Nick, Sean, Star Wars Complete, Red Fives who left earlier, Blue Pig, everyone else I missed, Nate, I saw so many people tonight, so I appreciate all your support. We like hanging out with you. It's fun for us to just talk Star Wars. So until next time, guys, thanks for stopping by. Make sure you check out Timeline's channel.